Welcome back to the ETF Inspector. It's Thursday, July 24th, just about 6 o'clock in the evening, and this is going to be our video review for Roundhill funds QDTE, XDTE, and RDTE. They're zero DTE covered call strategies that cover the NASDAQ Innovation 100, the S&P 500, and the Russell 2000. Each morning when they make their zero DTE trade, and all that is a trade that expires on the same day that it was made. I post it on X, so if you don't already and you'd like to, you can follow me at ETF_Inspector1. So you get an idea of how much money was brought in and what prices we are looking for. And then at the end of the day, once the market's closed, we make a quick video to see how everything performed. All right, so in general, we scroll down. If you looked at the thumbnail, XDTE and QDTE were in green because they went up on the day, and RDTE was in red. So there's little clues on the thumbnails as to how things went. We take a look, right? The NASDAQ 100 was up 0.25%, where QDTE actually beat it, up 0.32%. The S&P was up 0.07%, and XDTE beat it, 0.17% increase. And then the Russell 2000 had a rough day, down 1.36%. RDTE, the Roundhill fund, beat it as well, only losing 1.23. Not that it's a huge savings, but all three funds actually outperformed the indexes that they are written against. All right, so we'll start from QDTE. So we saw they sold calls at $23,260, 356 calls. They collected $24.19 or $861,000. And we saw that the NASDAQ 100 closed at $23,219. That is below $23,260, so no money had to be paid to close that out, and that resulted in a full profit, $861,000. As far as XDTE, they sold the SPX at $63.75. It expired, or it closed today at $63.63 and 35 cents, well below the $63.75. So again, zero paid out. They sold 640 contracts, collected $4.28 per share. There's 100 shares per contract. That resulted in $273,000, and all of it was kept as profit. And then finally, forgot to I gray out after we talk about it, so you know what to pay attention to, and I know what to talk about. Russell 2000, they sold calls with a strike of 2280, 2,280, and it went down, so no stress there. 2252, well below it. They collected $315 per share, 634 contracts, paying out $0 on the back end, keeping the full $199,000 profit. All right, if we back up again to QDTE, we'll just take a look at the holdings. Not much changed. Value, net assets in the fund, $819 million. We talked about it yesterday on Declaration Day. They declared a distribution this week for 23.6679 cents per share. If you watched my guesstimate videos, they come out on Fridays. I only missed this one by 0.35%, less than 0.5% off on my guess. So patting myself on the back on that one. So today was X day. So if you had the shares, you couldn't purchase them today. You had to have already had them, but you got marked as having them today. Then tomorrow you will be receiving that 23.6 cents per share in your fund, in your account, unless you have one of those brokers that makes you wait till Monday. Other than that, right, not really worth going into the weeds about, minor fluctuations within these. They still have the same amount of contracts. That's why you saw them selling the same amount. They sell the maximum amount. So QDTE closed at $35.39. And we got a 35% annual yield based on that last distribution. For XDTE, no changes again, right? So kind of the only thing we're watching for in the holdings is if they ended up closing out or selling any of these contracts. These are flex options. As you see, right, you generally don't have access to a $607.91 strike price, but you could probably get the 540 and 50 cents or the 600. It's just something these big brokerage firms have access to. One change was that there was a decrease in the outstanding shares. So more people sold their shares than purchased. So that reduced our outstanding share number, which actually increases our, well, no, it doesn't. It doesn't increase our NAV because when they sell, their money comes out as well. So that's why you're not going to see fluctuations in the NAV. You'll just see net assets go up and down as outstanding shares go up and down. Those two related to each other. 44.32 is the closing price there. That's about all we've got to talk about, right? 25 cents per share, roughly. Again, I missed it by less than 1% on my guess, but not that I did anything real special. I pretty much took the average of what they've been paying out and took a little off since they did not make very much in income. But great thing about these funds, you're already collecting the dividend tomorrow, and you're already looking forward to the next declaration of the next dividend the next week. So it's kind of like your job there. You just get your Friday paycheck. You don't even have to do anything. All right, so that's it for XDTE, covering the S&P 500, and then finally RDTE. No changes in the holdings. Now, let me just backtrack a minute. So if people sold out of the fund, all right, then the money for that has to come from somewhere. So it's either going to come from the government bonds, right, the T-bills, or cash and other, but in this case, they don't have cash to be purchasing the shares, or they've got to sell some of these contracts. So these are purchased deep in the money calls. They're what they're using to sell calls off of. Unfortunately, they do not give us access to that information, right? When I download the trades, they do not show any of that. They only show these RDTE trades. So we have to just pick it up each morning when I download. I just double check the new holdings versus the old holdings to see if these contract numbers change or if something down here changes. All right, so we'll be looking for it tomorrow to see if they had to sell some of these contracts. That's not ideal, right? Because then the things they are using to make money, they have less of it. But okay, finally, RDTE, right? This was the best distribution payer, 30.75 cents, coming out to over 45% annual yield. On a side note, if you've watched my other videos, I told you I had QDTE and XDTE, but not RDTE. That is no longer the case. I liquidated some funds in my 401k and purchased 100 shares today of RDTE. So I'm in it with you guys on all three. All right, that's all I've got. Tomorrow, last day of the week. So not only will you be on the lookout for the post on what their sales are in the morning, but the evening video will also have a guess on the distribution. Right, so if you see the Friday version of the Roundhill funds, it'll say dividend payday plus next week's distribution guesstimate, because we'll have all the full information to go over to make that estimate. Okay, so have a happy Friday. Shouldn't rush things. Have a good rest of your Thursday night. Have a good Friday tomorrow. Good luck trading, and I'll catch you in tomorrow's video.